Let us discuss the next question. This is from the year 2021. With reference to the Indian judiciary, consider the following statements. Statement 1. A retired judge of the Supreme Court of India can be called back to sit and act as the Supreme Court judge by the Chief Justice of India with the prior permission of President of India. Statement 2. A High Court in India has the power to review its own judgment as the Supreme Court does. Which of the following statements are correct? Now, statement 1 is talking about the retired judges being called as the temporary judges to act as the Supreme Court judge for a temporary period of time. Yes, the Chief Justice, with the prior permission of the President of India and the person who is being appointed as the temporary judge, after their prior permission, the Chief Justice then call back the retired judge and make him act as a Supreme Court judge for the time being. So this statement is correct. Statement 2. A High Court in India has the power to review its own judgment as the Supreme Court does. The High Courts do have the power to review the judgments, but here the keyword, read carefully, here the keywords are as the Supreme Court does. When we say as the Supreme Court does, it implies that the High Courts have the same review powers just as the Supreme Court. No, the High Court's powers are not same as the Supreme Court in this case. Hence, the statement will be incorrect. Which of the following statements are correct here? Statement 1 is correct, statement 2 is incorrect. So answer will be 1 only, that is A. Coming to the provisions of appointing a retired judge as a temporary judge in the Supreme Court. At any point of time, if the Chief Justice of India, he feels that a temporary need of the judges are there in the Supreme Court, he can request any retired judge of the Supreme Court or a retired judge of the High Court. When he is appointing the retired judge of the High Court, that person has to be qualified to be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court. So either a retired judge of the Supreme Court or a retired judge of the High Court who is qualified to be a judge of the Supreme Court, they can and act as a judge of the Supreme Court for a temporary period. The condition is that the previous consent of the President and the person who is being appointed as the temporary judge, it has to be taken. And when such people are appointed to the position of Supreme Court judges, they will enjoy all the jurisdictions, powers, privileges of a judge of Supreme Court. So statement number 1 is correct. Coming to the review powers of the High Court, just as a Supreme Court, the High Court is also a court of record and it also has the review powers and they can correct its own judgments or orders. But the review powers are mostly limited to the civil matters. And the powers are not same as the Supreme Court's powers because the Supreme Court powers in this case of review powers is more than the powers of the High Court. So if you look at Article 137, subject to the provisions of any law made by the Parliament or any rules made by the Articles 145, the Supreme Court shall have the power to review any judgment pronounced by it or the order made by it. This is clearly mentioned in the Constitution. But no such provisions are there in the Constitution with respect to the review powers of the High Court. Even by that logic, we can say that the powers of the Supreme Court or High Court in this case, they are not the same. So because the statement said that the High Court in India has the power to review its own judgment just as the Supreme Court does, no, it doesn't have the same level of powers. Hence, it will be incorrect. So finally, the answer is A, 1 only.